Hi, thanks for joining us. My name is Marla Dickerson. I am the business editor with the Los Angeles Times, and today I'm here with my colleague Michael Hiltzik. We're talking about big news in the energy industry today. JPMorgan Chase has agreed to pay $410 million to settle allegations by the government that the bank manipulated power markets in California and other states. The bank is going to pay a U.S. civil fine of $285 million, and it's going to return $125 million in ill-gotten gains to electricity ratepayers. That's according to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, also known as FERC. Mike, please recap the situation for our audience. How did the alleged manipulation work? And when did it happen? And what's a bank like JPMorgan doing in the energy business anyway?
Well, those are all very good questions. This all started in 2010 when JPMorgan acquired the rights to trade the electricity that was produced by 12 California power plants. And it did this in part by acquiring Bear Stearns, which was a failing investment bank that owned those rights. And this really started during the financial crisis of 2008. But at any rate, Morgan ended up with these rights starting in 2010. The California energy market that it was manipulating is an auction market. If you have the rights to electricity, you make a bid. The California energy authorities decide how much to pay for that bid, and they offer you the money, and you produce the electricity. But what Morgan understood was that this is sort of an automated process. It's all done by software, and there isn't much human oversight in it. And what they did was they found all the loopholes that they could in the software. They had 12 different strategies to take advantage of these loopholes. And as a result, they got paid far, far more for the electricity than the market really demanded. There were times at which they were bidding electricity at $1,000 a megawatt hour, when the actual market rate was $12. $12 is what consumers should have paid. Instead, they were paying Morgan $1,000. When you put it all together, you end up with $125 million, at least $125 million in ill-gotten gains.
So, Mike, JPMorgan isn't the only bank to be targeted by FERC. In January, Deutsche Bank agreed to pay $1.6 million to settle similar allegations, and now FERC is also ordering Barclays to pay almost $500 million in penalties. Now the bank's fighting that. So is this a sign of a new, tougher FERC? And are these big numbers meaningful?
Well, I think what it really is a sign of is that the energy markets are far too complicated for regulators like FERC or the California Independent System Operator, which is the state counterpart to FERC, to really manage correctly. There are too many loopholes. A bank that doesn't really care about providing electricity to consumers but is looking to make money will always find these loopholes, and we've seen this again and again and again. Morgan, Deutsche Bank, Barclays, these are all banks. They're not electricity producers, so they're only in it for the money, and that's what they're doing. Now, in terms of whether this sort of penalty is enough, clearly it's not enough. First of all, it's not being paid by any human beings who are responsible for this sort of behavior. It's being paid by the shareholders of the bank. $285 million is the penalty that Morgan is going to pay. That's the punishment. That's in addition to the $125 million that it shouldn't have earned in the first place that it's going to give back. Well, $285 million, that's 1 day's revenue for JPMorgan, the bank. That's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, and it's not enough of a deterrent.
Mike, California is not the only state that FERC is alleging was ripped off by these schemes. But for us, it has a deja vu all over again feel to it. As you remember, in the California energy crisis of 2000, 2001, at the heart of that was the energy giant Enron, which subsequently was accused of manipulating California markets. Now we're seeing a repeat of something similar. So my question is, what's California need to do to protect consumers and keep these companies honest?
Well, I think as long as you have markets that are this complex, as long as there are loopholes, you are going to have banks like this exploiting those loopholes. That's what Enron did. What Morgan did is very much like what Enron did. In fact, some of the same traders who used to work for Enron are working for other banks doing the same thing. So I think what really has to happen here is that the California energy market, really all markets that are subject to this sort of exploitation, need to go back to the old style, where you had a set price for electricity, and if you were generating electricity, you would get that price plus a certain regulated profit. That way there's no room for this sort of manipulation, no room for this sort of profiteering. And that's the way it's got to be. The regulators at this point don't agree. They're still trying to make this thing work. So far, they've failed miserably.
Mike, thanks for joining me. You can read Mike's column every Wednesday and Sunday in the Los Angeles Times and check out all the business headlines every day at latimes.com.